Hi there, I'm Dr. Cecilia de Martino, naturopathic doctor at Willow Wellness Clinic in Waterloo. Today I want to talk about hormones and all that encompasses hormones and the way that I look at hormones and treat. So when we think of hormones, hormones are basically chemicals that really rule how we feel a lot. So they affect our brain, they affect our digestive system, they affect our whole body. Primarily, when I treat or think of hormones, there are majority of people that I see are women. So if you are a female who has menstrual problems, whether it's irregular periods or you have really heavy periods or you're not getting your period at all, then I can definitely help with that. What I would do is look at any blood work that you could get or may already have. We would also track your cycle. So there's different ways to do that. You can do that through measuring your temperature every morning. That's your basal body temperature. So you would take a thermometer and basically as soon as you wake up in the morning, you put a thermometer under your tongue and get the temperature before you actually get out of bed. And there are many apps out there that help you track your period and where you can also enter in your temperature. And one app, for example, is Fertility Friend, but there are many others, Period Tracker, etc. But try to find an app that will then give you a graph. So after you've plotted all of these temperatures for a few months, then hopefully it can generate a graph for you. You can also do it by hand, absolutely, on like a graph paper. But nowadays, I think the majority of us use technology and use apps. And so then you can see what the graph looks like. What I'm looking for is for your temperature to be, so basically our cycle is ideally, I'm going to put in quotation because that's textbook and it's not always the case, but 28 days is what they go by. So the first half of the cycle, so the first 2 weeks of your cycle, you tend to have a lower body temperature. And in the second half of the cycle, the last 2 weeks of your cycle before you then get your period again, tends to be a bit higher. And when we're looking at that shift in temperature, so going from lower to higher and then back down. And as that temperature shifts from lower to higher, it can indicate that there's ovulation happening. If your temperature is sporadic and there is no correlation after a few months of trying this type of method, it can indicate possibly that there is a problem with ovulation, problem with fertility, and so we would look at, well, what is the cause? What is going on? Is there a problem with your hormones themselves, with your estrogen and progesterone balance? Is there a problem with your thyroid? Is there a problem with too much stress going on in your life, or the adrenal glands? And so these are areas that I would explore and see if we can then optimize your cycle. Not only make it more regular, but make sure that you are, in fact, ovulating. There are ovulation test kits that can be used because just because you don't have a period does not mean that you're not ovulating. It's just that you want to know if that's happening and when. So you may be at the stage of your life where you don't want to have kids and you're using it more of a preventative tool for pregnancy, or you're at the stage of your life where you do want to try to have children, and in which case it's also a good thing to track and know when you are most fertile. So look at your temperatures that way, and then the other way is also look at your cervical mucus, the discharge, and that will tell us as well what your fertility is like, what's your ovulation doing, etc. So those are ways. Then lastly, the other way to look at, and it can all be done together, but there is also a salivary hormone test that can be done. It's a month-long test. So basically for a month, you would spit into these tubes and collect your saliva and then send it to the lab, and they would generate a graph to say, okay, what's your estrogen doing? What's your progesterone doing? What's your cortisol doing? And all of that can indicate if things are normal or not normal, and what we can do about those. So these are all ways to assess your hormones and your fertility. And then on the other hand, if you are perimenopausal or menopausal and you are having problems, either your period is starting to get really, really heavy, or you're getting a lot of hot flashes, or you're having problems sleeping, these are all areas that naturopathic medicine can help. And I have great passion in that area. We usually, when someone has a really heavy period, it tends to be because of an estrogen dominant state, and therefore I would look at the liver and make sure that the liver is detoxifying properly to help metabolize those hormones. So we can prevent things like fibroids, we can prevent cysts, we can prevent polyps, right? All of these things are growths and are due to excess estrogen levels, generally speaking. And so by preventing them from getting worse, or just preventing them from coming out altogether, we can definitely work on that. And then if you're having a lot of hot flashes, we also want to try to balance things out. Being in menopause is completely normal. We just want to go through it gracefully, with not a lot of symptoms, and help with sleep, etc. So there's a lot that we can do there. I also really like working with your family physician. So if your doctor is open to naturopathic medicine, I'm happy to correspond with them or write a letter and say, okay, this is what I'm seeing, this is what I suggest, and working together can work quite well. As a naturopathic doctor, I can prescribe bioidentical hormones, so topical estrogen, topical progesterone, as well as desiccated thyroid. So those naturopathic doctors that have written the prescribing exam and passed it can prescribe those as well. Usually I use it more as a last resort. If we've tried everything else, if we've tried lifestyle, we've tried diet, we've tried herbal medicine, and if there are still symptoms, then I would resort to that. And it can work quite well, from vaginal dryness to sleep problems to period heavy flows, etc. So that is all what we can definitely treat. So that's my little presentation on hormones. And if you have any more questions, willowwellnessclinic.com is my website. Thank you.